and I live and work in Chibuktuk in Mi'kmaq, unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and I'm very honored to live and work here. Welcome to, I guess, kind of the wrap up of our summer series of the talk, Voices We Need to Hear. A wonderful collaboration we've had with Prismatic Festival over the summer. And Raeesa is going to kind of help me out here as we move along through the session. But we decided to kind of wrap things up with kind of some positive notes or success stories, I guess, if you could call them. So it's been a very trying time for our sector as a whole, but we find that challenges can create opportunities for ingenuity, creativity, and for, we've had time to do some hard work as well. And so we kind of reached out to a few different folks to kind of give us their stories on, and to share their experience or what they've been doing in response to, or even previous to response to, the global movements of today, the conversations that people are having, and I guess all under the umbrella of a pandemic as well. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll start first with Annie Wilson. She's programming supervisor at First Ontario Performing Arts Centre in St. Catharines, and Sarah Palmieri, also with First Ontario Performing Arts Centre in St. Catharines. She's the programming and marketing manager there. So thank you very much, Annie and Sarah. They're here to speak to us a bit about the Celebration of Nations, which is a really important part of the long-term planning of the center. And so I will hand it over to you ladies to share your experiences.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Hi from St. Catharines. We're in where our center is on the shared traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Neutral peoples. It's actually a really interesting location in that it was a old route where many nations cross, and it's in the dish with one spoon, the treaties, right? So it's a place where there's a lot of gathering happening. I'll just let you know that Annie and I are sitting beside each other because we work so closely together that we decided as colleagues and friends to stay in each other's bubble during the pandemic, and it's helped a lot, personally and professionally. So that's why we're here and we're safe, and we hope you're safe as well. So thanks for asking us to be here. We actually just got off a call about this year's Celebration of Nations, which is happening virtually this year, September 11th to the 13th. And now you can all join us because it's going to be online. So we'll just kind of talk a little bit about the program and how it got started and where we are now. So we're going into our fourth gathering. When there was the influx of 150, so we're 5 years in at the Performing Arts Center. This is a new center in St. Catharines. And Annie and I have always had a strong commitment working with the Indigenous community here in Niagara. And so in response to the influx of money that was available around 150, we have had some long-term relationships with some leaders in this community, and we didn't want to celebrate. We all kind of agreed that it wasn't a celebration, and so Celebration of Nations was actually born out of a response to 150. We work with two leaders in the community, Michelle Elise Burnett and Tim Johnson, and Celebration of Nations was a kind of a dream that Michelle Elise had that was seeded with us, that Annie and I as artists, producers and administrators were able to help to put into something that became a really beautiful, successful program. So initially there was a large influx of money that we received to create a gathering. And the first gathering also included a component around public art. So there is a public art piece that was created with an Indigenous and a non-Indigenous partners on our building. So there's some legacy that's happened there. The first year, it's called the Celebration of Arts, Heritage, and Culture. So it's really focused on contemporary and traditional Indigenous practice and teaching and education and art. The first year we engaged Santee Smith and Kahawi, which we have a long-term relationship with already, and Buffy St. Marie, along with a lot of elders from community and from beyond to provide teaching, response, interactive workshops, visual arts. And it's specifically the success immediately came out of it because of the relationships and the collaboration. So Annie and I, we help to amplify. We don't lead. We are connected in the community, in the artistic community, and so we can help to put pieces together. But what's been really important in the process, in the programming, and the journey of it is that it's a collaboration that's not led by us. The area that we do take most responsibility for is the producing of the actual gathering, as well as the money. Annie's a wicked grant writer and has been able to get really great funding for this. It's supported by all levels of government. However, after the first gathering, during the first gathering, it was identified that the community wanted it to be an annual event. So that's tricky. We're multidisciplinary presenters. We present normally pre-COVID about a 70 show season. We also have a film program here. We're in Little Old St. Catharines, which is 140,000 people, outside of Toronto. So what we found is in year 2, we went from, Annie was at a $350,000 budget because of 150 money to,
oh gosh, was
50?
it about 50 in year 2?
A $50,000 budget. But outwardly, other than maybe Buffy St. Marie, you'd never know. So we just have made a commitment, both at the center and the city, to do whatever we can to embed this project into our core operating, and where we can, so we build a small base for it and then hustle to get funding for it through different levels of government and sponsorship. One thing that was really important for us and for our advisors is that it wasn't just a one-off event. And we have been really mindful about our programming from, pre-opening. We were at Center for the Arts at Brock University. I was presenting, that it's important to have multiple lenses of programming. So we have a commitment that we have what we now call Celebration of Nations feature programming throughout the year, which is just our commitment to engage and present and have residency and work with Indigenous artists, not just from Ontario, but from around the world. So we have a kind of a core passion to do that. Kind of just shifting into where we are now. We're about to go into the 4th year. Annie wrote another killer application about a year and a half ago to Canadian Experiences Fund, and was able to secure quite a bit of funding that helped with last year's gathering and this year's gathering. And then we have funding through the Department of Canadian Heritage as well, and then a few local grants and small sponsorship. But because of that funding through FedDev, it allowed us to know that we were going to be in a position to do the gathering virtually, which is what we're doing, and we're deep in planning on doing that. So it's kicking off on Friday, September 11th, and there'll be live performances in our hall, as well as live stream performances. We're not bringing any public into the facility. So the concert on Friday night is with Kaylee Cardinal, who won the Indigenous Juno this year, and Tom Wilson, who won the Contemporary Juno this year. And then Michelle, Lisa, and Tim have created a Celebration of Nations Awards that there's six different categories. So those will be presented virtually. And then some of the other marquee programming will be, Santi Smith will be doing Blood, Water, Earth, which I believe was at Prismatic, right? Yeah,
Totally.
We were there.
Saw it. Yeah, that's why we.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So Santi's going to be doing that. It's going to be live streamed from the Red Door Studio in Six Nations, which will be a really awesome thing to have a dance performance that's live streamed. So tune in. And then after Santi on Saturday night, we have Lido Piamenta. She's awesome. And she's going to be in our facility live streamed out, as will Tom. Tom will be in our facility performing live streamed out. And Kaylee will be joining us from Alberta, from a studio in Alberta. And then on Sunday, we have a plethora of programming, but there's a program that's been put together called Her Moccasin Talks, and that is features strong Indigenous women, artists, and elders, and it's a panel discussion. So the first year it was with Santee and Buffy St. Marie, and this year it's with Christy Belcourt, which is crazy. She's an amazing artist. And Santee Smith will be joining us again. Angela de Montigny, and she's a fashion designer and artist. And then
Nancy Rowe.
And we just, and will be hosted by an elder, a very well-respected elder. So it is a mix of art and teaching and practice, and we're just chugging along. But because it's virtual, we hope you all can just join us, and you just join us by, it'll be streamed out through our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube page, as well as Celebration of Nations Facebook. So that's it. That's a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and congratulations. I'm going to kind of move it forward so we can hear from all of our invited guests, and then we can kind of open it up to a nice roundtable discussion. If anyone else on the call wants to share any of their thoughts or any of their stories, that would be awesome. So as Laurie said, this conversation it came out of our recognition that there was a voice missing in the pandemic and all the conversations that were happening. And that was the artists. And so I'm really excited to introduce our next guest, Paul Wong, who is on the call with us all the way from BC. Thank you so much for being here. And one of the really exciting and hard and important reasons of having Paul here is we actually had Paul on our first conversation right in the middle of the pandemic. And Paul, I know you'll kind of get to your story and your thoughts. And it was a hard time. It was not an easy time for a lot of people, particularly artists of color and Indigenous artists. And Paul shared stories with us of just truth and how, you know, he was feeling at the time. And then just recently, there's some exciting news. Paul just opened up Pride in Chinatown, which just launched in Chinatown in BC. And I won't give too much away. I want you to kind of explain all of that. But we just wanted to kind of bring it all together to show, you know, what you do when you have adversity to face and how you come out of it. So Paul, take it away. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back. Hello, panelists, and hello, viewers. Yeah, I'm coming from the unceded territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh. I'm sitting in my wonderful studio in the heart of Chinatown. Yeah, no, I'm, you know, I speak, and I'm always motivated as an artist, number one, which of course has also led me to I've always believed in DIY, that artists should be in control of production, distribution, and presentation. And that's where I also have a role as an artistic director of the entity called On Main, and I also independent curator and facilitator, because that goes hand in hand with developing community, collaborations, and audience. And I don't like to be alone. So part of it has always been very self-serving and interconnected. Because no one wants, we are stronger together and we're more interesting if we have collisions, abrasions, laughter, and interdisciplinary conversations. So that's what keeps me kind of moving forward and experimenting. I've been in Chinatown in this studio for 2.5 years, and that occurred simultaneously getting a studio and a year-long artist in residency that I developed in Chinatown at Dr. Sun Yat-sen Chinese Classical Gardens through an artist-initiated opportunity provided by the City of Vancouver. So the City of Vancouver has made a number of opportunities available where the artist initiates what you want to do. and controls all aspects of what that public art engagement would be. So in 2018, I launched a year-long artist in residency at this institution, Dr. Sun Yat-sen Chinese Classical Gardens in the heart of Chinatown, that involved community engagements, workshops, exhibitions, dialogue, and creation of work, and also curating. I launched that residency on the same day, which was April 22nd to 18, the same day that the city of Vancouver finally apologized and acknowledged its racist discrimination policies directed specifically at the Asian Chinese community, starting from, turn of the 20th century. So that's when I also launched my residency. Part of that residency, I had a summer platform where I could use the splendor of the garden, the courtyards, and the pavilions. And one of the projects I had proposed with much trepidation initially was a thing called gender roles playing on stage in small, writing back then, Pride in Chinatown. I wanted to do a Pride event in Chinatown, alternative Pride event away from the mainstream Pride. And that gender roles playing on stage involved putting together traditional Chinese opera performers with contemporary drag. In traditional Chinese opera, it was only men for the longest time could play on the stage. So specific men also played the women's roles. And when women were finally allowed to also perform on the stage, they also played men's and women's roles. So it was an interesting bringing together of non-binary contemporary drag and this kind of gender role swapping in traditional opera. And that was a huge, small, but very huge, extraordinary event, because we hadn't realized until it happened on the night of, I hung 2 small pride flags outside the gates under the red lanterns. And everyone had realized that pride flags had never flown in Chinatown before. I had never even realized, we knew that this was a kind of first time event for the garden, but we hadn't realized there had never been pride in Chinatown. And subsequently last year, I did a mega event, with 800 participants, an audience, and then managed to get some funding this year to do even a larger event. And the idea of doing a one-night spectacle. When I was speaking with you at the end of May, things were pretty grim. I think, I had been in lockdown and in isolation and hadn't really returned to the studio yet. And, Chinatown was on the downtown east side, right out here, was pretty dire with the homeless, the poverty, the addiction, the vandalism, the racial discrimination, the graffiti, the attacks on Asian peoples on our streets was pretty debilitating. And also seeing so many the arts community, bewildered and beaten down and scratching one's heads. I mean, certainly for a huge sector, the live arts sector, the venues, those without public funding, those kinds of institutions, the clubs, the underground spaces, it's such a loss and continues to be such a loss that, those are the venues and talent pools and training grounds and incubators and contentious spaces and renegade artists that, we depend on to develop connections and skills and ideas. So anyway, that was May. And I think I returned to the studio right about then, very slowly, but Pride in Chinatown, what to do about it? I was already kind of exhausted and bored and overwhelmed by the assault of Zooms and virtual this and that and that and that. A lot of it quite desperately done, to be quite honest. That I decided to, not do that for Pride in Chinatown. I couldn't have gatherings. I couldn't do a spectacle. So, and ended up just myself and two part-time people. We produced 10 on-street projects. I went to visual artists, went to businesses, and we had 8 artist projects create site-specific works, vinyls, graphics for outdoor spaces, windows, hoardings, storefronts, billboards, postering, which was extraordinary to do that. So the opening project, which was only 2 weeks ago, I forget the date, already was a flower bombing by an anonymous group that originally did a flower bombing in early June. There's the gates in Chinatown, the Millennium Gates, which had been repeatedly attacked, the Lions, with racist graffiti throughout May and into early June. Someone, we don't know who then, came and completely decorated the Lions with flowers. And some of us just came across this, and it was such a random act of love that someone proposed quite late on that they would find this anonymous person and that we would produce and find them a sponsor. And so for the opening of Pride in Chinatown 2 weeks ago, they completely festooned garland and the kind of for the launch of Pride in Chinatown. So that's comes from a singular person doing this small act of love, a gesture to reclaim our streets, and then we were able to amplify it again. So it's been a challenge to take a one-time, one-night event behind closed gates and celebrate out loud and proud to now try to claim the territory of Chinatown and do these 24/7 projects that have been vandalized, that have been stolen, that have been ripped down. Our 9th project was to produce a banner, a sticker. Wait a minute, I gotta get it. Wait. I have it. I'm not even prepared. Sorry. I'm back. So we produced these in black and white with bilingual letters, and had our volunteers go to every association, business, cafe, hair salon, community service to ask if they would put these welcome stickers on their doors and windows. And that in itself has been very interesting. Those who embraced it instantly, those who said we don't put anything on our windows, those that said they would put it up themselves, and those who said they won't. So the analytics on that shows there's so much work to be done. Because here was a project that said welcome, Pride in Chinatown, and that we would also promote anyone who sees these through our platforms to support these businesses. So, less than half have put these up. And then, of course, our 10th project was we decided to launch a website called prideinchinatown.com, which now contains wonderful documentation from 2018, 2019, and a complete walking touring map of the 9 projects from Pride in Chinatown, MMXX. So you can pretty well see the projects online, or come and walk on the streets. So that's where we pivoted, and that's where I am now, about halfway through the month-long Pride in Chinatown 2020.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Yes, thanks, Paul. And from Pride on the West Coast to Pride on the East Coast, we have Adam Reed, the Executive Director of Pride Halifax. And we thought of Adam because we know that Pride has been doing a lot of work in the QT BIPOC area. They have a committee and they do events, and so we just wanted him to come and share kind of what Pride continues to do in development in that area. So Adam.
Thanks, Laurie. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Reed. As Laurie said, I'm the Executive Director of Halifax Pride. I use he, him pronouns. And I do want to acknowledge, as a cis white man, I am lifted and supported in this work in so many ways by the incredible team of volunteers who support this, and particularly our teams of QT BIPOC volunteers and consultants and folks who do this work. So, while I'm here today, I'm paid staff who's able to be here today. I want to kind of bring voice to the amazing work that they have been doing all year long, and especially, in the lead up to our festival, which was, held under very unique circumstances. So in March, we were just sort of starting to finalize our program for the July festival. So as you all faced, we were totally upended, and really decided for this first couple months to take some time to reflect on how we could support community who we knew were in particular need. We know that our 2S LGBTQ plus community faced particular challenges, faced them during COVID with lockdown, precarious living, underemployment. So we as a society were trying to decide how can we help those folks through webinars and outreach. And much of that we knew would also be building towards the work, what we were trying to build our own skill sets that we knew would be valuable, of course, then as well during the festival. So it really wasn't until, typically we have, we spend 12 to 14 months planning a festival, but it really was only about 8 weeks out from the festival that we decided, okay, let's get to this. We thought we had sort of enough understanding of what will be happening with COVID to start planning what was possible. So we started trying to envision what was possible. And what should be clear is we recognize that Halifax Pride is really just a platform for the community. We help organize the festival. We are not the festival. The festival is a real collaboration between volunteers and community organizations and all those folks. So there was a real challenge in trying to identify how we could still support other groups who wanted to do events, who would be wanting to do events, while hosting things that were meaningful and beneficial as well. I really felt strongly that if there was any way to do in-person events, we really wanted to do that. Again, recognizing the particular struggles that a lot of our community members were facing in isolation. So really the work then turned to our committees. So we have about a dozen different committees: accessibility, QT BIPOC, youth, elder, programming, who all inform the work we're doing. So we kind of reached out to all of them and said, brainstorm, what are the things that you would like to see happen, and we really just kind of came up with a list of a huge list of things that we would like to see happen, and started to reflect on what was actually possible. What could we make happen? And I would say we were really imagining big. We weren't sort of holding back. What we came up with in the end was sort of certainly, of course, online elements. We had a number of online elements. We took over a black box theater, the Bus Stop Theater, and turned it into our Pride studio, from where we hosted health and wellness panels, noon hour panels talking about topics of relevance to the community. We did a few nightly entertainment events, but we also had in-person events. So we did a festival site. So at the time, we understood that there'd be gatherings of 10 people in a bubble were likely. So we thought, okay, how can we create events where folks can bubble and have a hangout space, that is safe, where, you know, safety is a top priority, but would still allow folks to kind of gather. So we did have our usual festival site, but without a lot of the large trappings of the giant stage. And then a few offsite events, such as a flag raising and a march and a vigil, where we were throughout going to be encouraging social distancing. So again, as we were planning all of these events, we, you know, issues related to Black Lives Matter really surfaced, of course. And we knew that our festival would have to integrate these deeply within the programming. So then, you know, again, several weeks out, we were speaking with our QT BIPOC committee. We were fortunate to have a really fantastic Two-Spirit consultant working with us, along with the Wabanaki Two-Spirit Alliance, another local group. So we sort of turned to our, you know, our collaborators to find out ways in which the festival could reflect the conversations that were happening in the community. So, you know, those were already sort of integrated into the festival with some of our talks and a number of events, but, you know, they became more heightened. You know, the conversations became more specific, you know, talks about how can a non-Black POC support the Black community. What is, you know, what is Pride's role in you know, the demoralization, stigmatization of QT BIPOC folk in our community. So, you know, having those conversations. And we were also very fortunate, we hadn't yet kind of announced our Pride ambassadors for the year. And so there's a really amazing group doing a really fantastic work here in town, 902 Game Changers, who have been supporting calls for an end to police violence. So we were able to name them as our ambassadors, and also engaged a number of QT BIPOC consultants. So also, in addition to our QT BIPOC committee, we knew we'd be turning to folks a bit more, and didn't want to abuse anyone's time, of course, and so wanted to really engage a bit more deeply. So also engaged a few QT BIPOC consultants as well. So all of this kind of led to an 11-day festival that certainly looked incredibly different, but I think still offered a really wide variety of ways that folks could, you know, recognize the moment of Pride, whatever that was for them, whether it was, you know, gathering with friends to sort of celebrate or be social, or, you know, have those conversations about the matters that are, you know, we're all facing. So, you know, it was still, I certainly think we did definitely face challenges. And of course, you know, we had these physical spaces, but there's still the, you know, fear of COVID within the population. So, you know, we didn't have huge turnout, but I think there were a lot of people were still coming to the sites, coming to the events, coming to yoga and all these different hangouts. I think the events that were particularly successful were the closed space events. We had a number of QT BIPOC closed space, elder closed space, trans and non-binary closed spaces. Those went very well. And, you know, I think another challenge we faced was the narrative of it's COVID times, everything's canceled, nothing's happening, everything's online, there's no Pride parade. And, you know, trying to overcome, and we didn't, but trying to overcome the narrative of Pride is a parade and there's no parade, so there's no Pride. That was just a narrative that was virtually impossible to overcome, but we did our best to sort of get the message out about all the things we were doing. So, you know, it's been an incredible year for learning. I am really interested in how this will impact kind of future festivals. I know we've, you know, had a lot of really hard conversations and done a lot of work with the community. So I'm hoping to see that sort of continue certainly in festivals to come. And yeah, so now we turn our sights to 2021 and trying to imagine the possibilities of what that will look like. So that's it.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I think we're all trying to imagine the possibilities of 2021 as we sit here and still in 2020. Thanks very much for all three of our speakers for sharing with us. And I guess maybe Raeesa will just hand it over to the group to see if anyone has questions or particular comments or anything.
You know, I was going to say that, you Pride in Chinatown was one alternative. It was about alternative to the kind of corporatization and main staging of, pride in the specific white middle class zone that had always taken place in the West End, the fabulous gay West End, and the fact that there was something missing, and there certainly was something missing in silence of a zone like Chinatown. And for me, quickly realized, that pride is beyond a summertime, dancing in the parks. Pride is all year long, and it should be all year long. I can do a pride event whenever. So that's what kind of freed me up. And then realizing that, trying to take over Chinatown and trying to support artists, to discover what visual artists would come up. And part of the language is always wanted as an incubator. What does pan-queer Asian art and artists and ally collaborations could look like? It's a brand new arena. The idea of doing 24/7 things on the streets and windows, so that it could be engaged with. I mean, was one of the early works that first I curated was based on Made in China, who did 41 daily things in isolation, non-binary looks, from glamorous to super dark. And I said, that would be great for Pride in Chinatown. We could put it all up, these 41. We got turned down over and over and over for a site. So we decided that we would just continuously, guerrilla style, plaster those portraits up. And they keep getting ripped down. So sometimes, that's work that was done as an Instagram story for 41 days. And now it's transitioned to a guerrilla street work. So it's other artists have, addressed, Yellow Peril supports Black Power, and have had those, ripped down from windows. So the reaction has been negative and positive, and we don't know, because it's just kind of out there. So the idea of getting back onto the streets, where I think a lot of our movements around things have always started in terms of protest, has been an interesting pivot for me anyway.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. And yeah, that word pivot has been used a lot lately, but the pivot to that on the street is really interesting, Paul. And that the going from kind of a performing arts event to strictly visual, it was so smart, because that's, what you worked within the confines of what you had to work with. So it's it's really, really cool. I'm totally going online and checking all those out.
I'm just gonna go to the chat box for a quick second here. So we had shared prideinchinatown.com there, as well as Annie and Sarah shared their Celebration of Nations information, so you guys can check that out. I'm also gonna just ask Jeff Ward, who I know is on the call with us here. Shaheen kind of prompted it there. If there's a time to hear from Jeff, if we could hear what's happening on the reserve. So Jeff, do you want to give us a little update of kind of what's going on up in Member 2?
Kwe medalo is in Jeffrey Ward, Nidale when Medabanagia, Stamwigi Maba to Nige. It's a true honor to be here with among colleagues and friends and people I've seen. Can you hear me? You can hear me good?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay, perfect. What happened in our communities because of this virus, we are very protective of our elders and of ceremonies. So we're not taking the chances, and we're not taking the risks of any powwows. All powwows, I would say 95% to 99% were canceled this year. And when I say powwows, gatherings, Mawiomis, They just, due to the safety of our elders and to protect our youth too as well. So, however, it saddened me because we had an event where Indigenous Live, APTN, was to be first time ever in history to be in a First Nation community, and it was to be here in Membertou this year. The concert was supposed to be held here on our grounds, and where a lot of times, first time in history, people come to Membertou. And now we do have a convention center still open. It's by booking it, and it's sad because we could still have concerts and we could have many events being filmed at our convention center and put on Zoom, put on the internet. You could have plays. We have a beautiful stage, beautiful area. We could have plays and performances, and people could perform on our stage. Now that's not happening. And people could stay at our beautiful Hampton Inn, which is open. And you could, at the convention center, you could, and starting September 8th, you could come to the Heritage Park for a tour. And you'll get 10% off everything in the gift shop. So I'd add that. But that's what we'd like to see. We'd like to bring that back as an actor as well, a part-time actor, theater and movies and film, TV. I've been doing a lot of commercials lately and small stuff. But it's hard for us artisans. And I just had a conversation with my brother, who was an artisan, and good thing he has a government job because he wouldn't survive without this year. We were counting how much revenue was lost. And it was funny because it was a conversation with his grandson. His grandson was saying, Papa, this is the best year ever. We've been fishing almost every night. We caught so much fish. Oh my God, this fishing season is amazing. And he said, yeah, it is. And he goes, how come we never fished this much? Well, because we went to powwows every weekend. And we went and did craft shows and conferences and workshops. And the grandson was like, oh yeah, that's right. And it's like night and day. So a lot of our artisans are really hurting. And a lot of our organizations and a lot of our can really use the business. And I'm sure everybody can. And we're trying to find out unique and different ways. Our museum is going virtual and many things are going online, but we have to find that way to connect. So I just want to promote Convention Center. If you haven't been to Membertou, it's your time to come. And if you've been to Membertou, remember that good time we had? So come on out and you get 10% off everything in my gift shop, or not my gift shop, the Heritage Park. So I just want to put that out there. If there's any questions, or if you guys need any actors or an actor or a singer or a cultural workshop, which I'm doing a lot lately on Zoom, online, and about spirituality, about how to be an ally, which is really good. And I'm glad I saw a lot of the stuff that's going on for Pride Week and it still went virtual. That's amazing. We wish we had the parade here in Sydney. I don't know if we're the first, but we, Sons of Membertou, would take our big drum and we would put it on the back of a flatbed, and we almost every year, we were part of the Pride Parade here in Sydney. So we missed that. But yeah, and just sending good wishes to everybody, and it's good to see everybody. And Tahoe.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jeff. And if you guys haven't heard, he wants to go to Membertou. I'm gonna throw that out there one more time. If there's anyone else, we do still have a little bit of time left here. So if there's anyone else, Shaheen, would you like to speak?
Well, I don't want to take too much time because I already got one in, but if there's nothing else, I have something. Okay. It's not a question. I have a question after, but I just wanted to recognize something. I think it's important in these times. And now we're talking about the ones who are actually doing work and making work happen. It's interesting that, it was mentioned by one group that is presenting the works of Indigenous artists. They're saying that they're the collaborations not led by them, and it's led by the artists, and they're the leaders of it. They're doing work. They're actually doing work. And then on the other side, Paul said this too, that making the art, packaging it, getting it to the audience, he believes, same as myself, that is all should be done by the artist. And here in these difficult times, is that kind of thought and mentality that is getting the work out and is surviving. I just wanted to, say that. I think is very important. But I do have a question, I see Jeremy Webb here. I don't know if he's comfortable to talk about it or not, but even those, like some of our colleagues are not doing actually work, but they're making what is available to them available to others to do work. And Jeremy came up with this program, and I don't know if he's comfortable with it, but it's basically making what is there for him available to others to come and do work. And if he's comfortable to do it, I think is relevant to our talk here.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, I'm often accused of being comfortable talking too much, but one thing that, you may know, well, I'm the artistic director of Neptune Theatre in Halifax, and we are closed down right now, and will be until, closed down from producing our own work until at least next summer. That's what's on the cards right now. And we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years and enhanced now at looking at our place. And I'm very enthusiastic to have work led by and involving Neptune Theatre, which is, of course, essentially a racist institution, white-run, become aware and involved in our community, in the broader community. And so one of the things that we have worked out is that we have a large building in downtown Cityland, which has a lot of space, and we're not using it entirely at the moment. We are using it. We have theater school classes going on all the time. We've been running them for the last few weeks of the pandemic, and successfully, I'm happy to say, and safely. So one of the things I did was Raeesa and I spoke about, we already had a program called Open Spaces, which has been operating for a few years out of Neptune. And the idea of that program was to open up essentially what is traditionally an expensive space for a theater company to rent, and cutting them a break on the price, and not being involved artistically with their project, but having this, opening the gate a little to smaller emerging companies. And I saw this time as an opportunity for us to open that door a little wider. And we're developing a program, Raeesa and I, whereby the space is here, the space is available. I have no need to know, I have a desire to know and an interest, but no need to in any way adjudicate the content of work that may be done in the space. But we're opening up our space to artists to come in and make use of this space right now through the fall and probably beyond until we can open up again. Raeesa, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that, but we thought it was a good idea, and it'll. I think you mentioned it today in your great announcement for Prismatic, so it's sort of gone public now, which is fantastic. And so I'm really hoping that everyone here can sort of, keep that in mind. It could be that an artist, and I just invited you to speak, Raeesa.
No, go ahead, please. You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll because I just remember what I wanted to say, and then I will shut up. It might be an artist coming in for a day or two. They may have a piece of music they need some space to work on, a dance piece, a spoken word piece, whatever it is, or a play for a longer period of time. But right now, I think it's really important that Neptune Theatre puts their building where their mouth is.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for working with us on
Oh,
it.
my
We're
goodness.
so
Yeah.
excited to be a part of that project. And
Yeah.
I think, that's not quite a wrap up. If someone else wants to speak, for sure, there is still a little bit of time, but I think it's just really important that in this time, as we are all facing adversity, to really open up our eyes, open up our hearts, and find ways to make a difference. And I think, just from hearing what we've heard from some artists and presenters and, venues on this call, that is something that we need to start doing the work. And the pandemic has given us a bit of a chance to step back and actually look to ourselves and look at our organizations. And we need to continue doing that work. So we just wanted to make sure that, there was a space for people to talk about what they're doing. So if there is anyone else that wants to share, a little piece of their story of what they might be working on, or some of their successes, or even some of their challenges, I mean, it's completely an open space. Feel free.
Can I just add one thing? I just put my email address in the chat there, just so that if we've not met before or we don't know each other, please feel free to reach out. Raeesa and I will develop some kind of process for the space use. But right now it's very casual. Just drop me a line if you know artists that would appreciate the use of this space. But Raeesa and I will be working together on it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Just in closing, I think what has become very acute, and the challenge is, all of us have been about challenging institutions. And sadly, we've all had to build our minute little, modest little things. And with the COVID-19, all the major institutions, prompted by Black Lives Matter, are scrambling and being supported to do institutional reinvention. Nothing has to last forever. I think there's been so many of us doing new possibilities in interesting ways that have lacked major support. Now the major support still goes to those major institutions that have not embraced innovation or change. Yet they still get the bigger piece of the pie. That's it. I don't have a solution. It's just an ongoing, fight that, they need to be accountable. And maybe they don't get to make change. Maybe it's time for them to go away. Neptune Theatre.
Yeah, and I can speak to that as well. Halifax Pride, we're fairly, we're a significant organization. We receive considerable funds. For 30 years of our history, that was kind of on the backs of volunteers, and volunteers were making that happen. Now we find ourselves in a position where we have a little bit of staff and those funds, and it is absolutely our number one duty to identify ways that we can ensure that those resources that this society has benefited from, this organization has benefited from, so that it is accessed and used to the most robust and most fullest extent by the community we're meant to serve. So yeah, and it is about reimagining. I see these coming years as a time for reflection and rejuvenation. This is work we've been doing I've been in this role for 4 years now, and the work is ongoing, and it's not going to end. But I try to see some hope in that. Maybe this is a time for real reimagining and institutional change that we know our communities are calling for.
Yes, thanks for that, Adam. And thanks everyone. Thank you, Paul and Anne, Annie and Sarah. We really appreciate your sharing with us today. We do kind of have to wrap it up. We're at that time, I guess. So thanks everyone. Raeesa, I'm not sure if you have anything you want to kind of contribute, or we're all good. Thanks everyone for your time and for spending it with us. And good luck everyone on your future endeavors there, Annie and Sarah, in a couple of weeks. And yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
We'll keep you informed, and I'm sure this conversation will continue.
Thanks so much.